All right, we're going to start having a discussion on cardiovascular pathology. The first topic is congenital heart diseases. Congenital means being born with. That means something which is present at the time of birth itself. So, coming to congenital heart diseases, so these are actually abnormalities of heart or great vessels that are present at birth. So, you may be having either abnormalities of the heart or great vessels like aorta, superior vena cava, or inferior vena cava, and these abnormalities are present at the time of birth itself. And congenital heart diseases is actually the most common type of pediatric heart disease, and these are actually seen with faulty embryogenesis. So you all might be knowing that organogenesis takes place between third week to eighth week, so where most of the organs will be seen developing. So if there is any faulty embryogenesis, so that usually leads to congenital heart diseases. And these congenital heart diseases, they may be either compatible or incompatible with life. So some patients may survive, some patients may not survive. Next, coming to the idiopathogenesis, so it could be either genetic or environmental. So coming to the genetics, so it's usually sporadic genetic abnormalities. So it could be either chromosomal 22q deletion, so which is usually considered as DeJoss syndrome, or there can be monosomy X, which is considered as Turner syndrome, or there may be different types of trisomies. So there could be trisomy 13, 18 or 21. So trisomy 21, which is known as Down syndrome, is considered as the most common genetic cause for congenital cardiac diseases. And coming to the various environmental factors, so there could be an infection with rubella, so congenital rubella infection, or there may be development of diabetes mellitus being pregnant, so that is gestational diabetes, or there may be an exposure to teratogens. So teratogens are the substances which can cross placenta and cause damage to the fetus, or there may be involvement of some nutritional factors. So any of them can be seen in association with causing congenital cardiac diseases. And then coming to the various categories of congenital cardiac diseases, so there are three different types of categories. So the first one is malformations causing a left to right shunt, which is the most common category. And the second one is malformations causing a right to left shunt. And the third category is malformations causing an obstruction. Next, the first category, that is the most common category, is left to right shunts. So the word shunt means an abnormal path for the flow of blood. So instead of choosing the conventional path, now blood has chosen a different path for its flow. So that is what we mean by a shunt. So right to right shunts means, so whenever there will be flow of blood from left heart to right heart, so there will be more volume load on the right heart. So this volume is being pumped by the right ventricle to the pulmonary circulation. So whenever lungs receive more volume of blood in the pulmonary circulation, so obviously there will be an increase in the volume and pressures. And to pump more volume of blood into the pulmonary circulation, the right ventricle keeps on working, so that eventually results in hypertrophy of the right ventricle. So right ventricular hypertrophy is a consequence. And finally, because of elevated volumes and pressures within the pulmonary circulation, so it is accompanied by vascular changes, and that finally results in elevated pulmonary resistance. So because of higher amount of pressures now on pulmonary side, so instead of left to right shunting of blood, now the blood will be seen flowing from right to left. So that is what we mean by shunt reversal. So because of shunt reversal, now blood is flowing from right to left. So on right side you have deoxygenated blood, and left side you have oxygenated blood. Now deoxygenated blood is getting mixed with the oxygenated blood, and this mixed blood is being supplied to the body. So that's why there will be development of cyanosis. So altogether this is what is known as Eisenmenger syndrome. And next, these are the different types of left to right shunts. So we have ventricular septal defect, atrial septal defect, and patent ductus arteriosus. And coming to the ventricular septal defect, VSD, so this is the most common type of left to right shunts. And the cause is, so whenever there will be incomplete closure of the interventricular septum, so it will be seen as a defect in the ventricular septum, and that is what is known as ventricular septal defect. And these defects are mostly single in nature, and on the basis of the size and location we have various types. So it could be membranous VSD, which is the most common type. So whenever there is defect involving the membranous portion of the interventricular septum, so you simply call it as membranous VSD. And the second one is infundibular VSD. So whenever there is ventricular septal defect below the pulmonary wall, so that's the location, so then you will call it as infundibular VSD. And then if it involves the muscular portion of the interventricular septum, you call it as muscular VSD. So this muscular VSD is usually multiple in nature. So these are the three different types of VSDs we have. So this is how left to right shunt takes place in case of ventricular septal defect. So you can easily appreciate there is a defect involving the interventricular septum, and there is flow of blood from left ventricle to right ventricle. So oxygenated blood is getting mixed with the deoxygenated blood, and this mixed blood, it is going via the pulmonary trunk to the lungs to get oxygenized. So the oxygenated blood, now it comes to the left ventricle and then it goes to the body via aorta. So that is why usually there will be no cyanosis. Okay. Now coming to the clinical picture, so VSDs can be either isolated or sometimes they can be associated with other congenital cardiac diseases like tetralogy of Fallot. And whenever these VSDs are smaller in nature, they are usually compatible with life. So that means the patients, they grow normally into their adulthood. And whenever these VSDs are large in size, so then there may be right ventricular hypertrophy and pulmonary hypertension, and that leads to shunt reversal and cyanosis, so which is considered as Eisenmenger syndrome. And coming to the second one, atrial septal defect. So it is caused by defects in the formation of interatrial septum. So again, there are different types of atrial septal defects based upon the location. So if it is located at the center of interatrial septum, so we call it as secundum ASD. And then we have primum anomalies. So these primum anomalies, they are usually located adjacent to the atrioventricular valves. And then the third type is sinus venosus defects. So they are usually located near the entrance of superior vena cava. So on the basis of location, we have secundum ASD, primum anomalies, and sinus venosus defects. So this is how it takes place. So whenever there is a defect involving the interatrial septum, so again there will be flow of blood from left atrium to the right atrium, because we have higher pressures on the left side and lower pressures on the right side. That's why blood flows from left atrium to right atrium. So oxygenated blood getting mixed with the deoxygenated blood in the right atrium, and then it flows into the right ventricle, and from there it flows via pulmonary trunk to the lungs, and there it gets oxygenized and coming back to the left heart. So from left heart it goes via aorta to the body. So that's why there will be usually no cyanosis. And coming to the clinical picture, so you may feel a murmur, so with the flow of blood from left atrium to the right atrium. And these atrial septal defects, they are usually asymptomatic until adulthood, and the reversal of shunt is usually rare. So patient usually survives into his adulthood. So very compatible with the life. So the third one under left to right shunts is patent ductus arteriosus (PDA). So ductus arteriosus usually transform to ligamentum arteriosus after the birth. So if it is patent, then you simply call it as patent ductus arteriosus. So patent ductus arteriosus is a connecting channel which connects pulmonary artery with aorta. So it will be usually seen being patent even after birth because of hypoxia. So hypoxia is the most important etiologic factor for the patency of ductus arteriosus. So what happens if ductus arteriosus is patent? So there will be continuous flow of blood from aorta to the pulmonary trunk, and from pulmonary trunk it goes to the lungs, gets oxygenized, and from there it comes back to the left lung, left heart. So there will be no cyanosis usually. So coming to the clinical picture, so with patent ductus arteriosus, the most important finding is a continuous harsh machinery-like murmur. So that's what you will listen with the stethoscope. So if it is a smaller shunt, usually compatible with life, and if it is a large shunt, so there may be eventually development of Eisenmenger syndrome because of the reversal of the shunt, and it will be seen with the development of cyanosis. And coming to the right to left shunts, that's the second category. Right to left shunts are what are known as cyanotic congenital heart diseases. So they will be seen with some common features. So the first one is development of cyanosis at early stages. So that's because of hypoxemia. So these babies they usually turn blue because of cyanosis. That's why we call them as blue babies. And there are higher chances for the development of paradoxical embolism, polycythemia, and clubbing. So they are the common features in association with right to left shunts. And there are the different types of right to left shunts we have. So the first one is tetralogy of Fallot, which is the most commoner one. And then comes transposition of the great arteries. And the third one is tricuspid atresia. And tetralogy of Fallot is the most important one. So which was even asked on the previous question papers. So this is the most common type of right to left shunts, and the cause for development of tetralogy of Fallot is anterosuperior displacement of the infundibulum septum. And as the name suggests, there are four important features with the tetralogy of Fallot. So the first one is a large ventricular septal defect, and the second one is subpulmonary stenosis. So because of subpulmonary stenosis, so stenosis means narrowing of the channel. So because of narrowing, there will be an obstruction to the flow of blood from right ventricle into the pulmonary trunk. So this is what is causing obstruction of the right ventricular outflow tract. And then there is an overriding aorta. So this aorta it overrides the ventricular septal defect. And finally we have right ventricular hypertrophy. So as I said before, there is an obstruction of the right ventricular outflow tract. So right ventricle keeps on pumping the blood through the narrowed pulmonary trunk. So that's why there will be hypertrophy of the right ventricle. So because of right ventricular hypertrophy, so that causes enlargement of the heart. So this enlargement results in boot-shaped heart. So from the picture you can clearly see there is a large VSD. So there is a defect involving the ventricular septal defect, and then there is subpulmonic stenosis. So there is narrowing of the pathway, and then there is an overriding aorta. So it overrides large ventricular septal defect. So what happens here is, so because of blood has to flow through the narrowed pulmonary trunk, so right ventricle keeps on pumping the blood, so it eventually undergoes hypertrophy. So there is a right ventricular hypertrophy. So as it is very difficult to pump blood through the narrowed pulmonary trunk, so there will be higher pressures on the right ventricle side. So in comparison to the pressures on left ventricle side. So that's why instead of flowing blood from left ventricle to right ventricle, now blood flows from right ventricle to left ventricle. So there is deoxygenated blood on right ventricle which is getting mixed with the oxygenated blood on the left ventricle side, and this mixed blood it flows via aorta and gets supplied to the body. So that's why there will be an early development of cyanosis. So there are two different forms of tetralogy of Fallot. So one is classic form and the second one is pink tetralogy. So the classic form will be definitely seen with cyanosis and also TET spells. And whenever there is classic tetralogy of Fallot, so classic one is usually seen in association with severe subpulmonic stenosis. So severe subpulmonic stenosis doesn't allow much blood flowing from right ventricle into the pulmonary circulation. So that is why eventually pulmonary arteries they become hypoplastic, and then this is usually an association of larger overriding aorta. And then there are TET spells because so whenever baby gets agitated, so there is usually development of cyanosis. And then the second form is pink tetralogy. Pink tetralogy is usually seen in association with mild subpulmonic stenosis. So obviously whenever stenosis is mild, there will be no obstruction for the flow of blood from right ventricle into the pulmonary circulation. So that is why there will be continuous flow of blood from left ventricle to right ventricle. So it is more like a VSD. So that's why there will be no development of cyanosis. So this is how if you take an X-ray, a boot-shaped heart will be seen, and the second picture shows clubbing of digits. So which is a common finding in association with the congenital heart diseases, especially cyanotic congenital heart diseases like tetralogy of Fallot.